Alright guys, I haven't filmed anything to do with this loafing barn, quote unquote. It's a Harbor Freight cover. Got one over here as well for hay storage. And I just haven't had time. In fact, I've neglected this channel particularly, but I have a real job and it pays the bills and YouTube doesn't. YouTube's kind of some kind of crazy side thing. So I figured what we would do is go over basically the changes since the last video, and there's going to be a bunch of them. Basically, we had cows. We're in 2024 to date the video, and I think we had cows 2 years ago. And we slaughtered them, and they're in the freezer, but we'll kind of go over the way that the shelter is now and why. So what we have it for right now is goats. And it's the end of summer, and so obviously they've got more than enough to eat, more than they know what to do with. But predominantly this is set up for the winter time, and I think what I'll do is talk about maybe temporary stuff that was unintended and permanent stuff that was intended. So you can see behind me there's a tarp, and I would call that unintended. That's kind of white trash. And basically what we had last winter is a problem with our goats where they were getting hoof rot, and you'd like to think that it was because they were standing in water, but it really wasn't. It was just because the field was wet and they got it in their hooves, and I could not seem to figure out how to. I dipped their hooves in iodine and it would get better for a while and then it would come back. It was a real struggle. And so the tarp behind me is there as for in the summer it's been great for shade for them, but they pretty much are only here at night. And then in the winter it's been invaluable to keep them out of the weather. So we'll go over that, and then that's a temporary thing. I'd love to see it go away and have something more permanent, but we'll go inside and we'll take a look at the way this was set up for the cows. Steer, I should say, but I don't know. They're all cows to me. So, yeah, we'll go over that real quick and kind of just give you a quick rundown. So we've had a lot of windstorms this summer, late summer, and I have this tied off in a couple of places loosely to give the overall support for the tarp. And then we get a lot of wind that comes from the west going east, and it would make the tarp flutter and started to rip the corners out. It's totally ripped that corner out up there. But what I did is I tied this front side off and tensioned it to the gate, and they're just hitches, so they're easy to get out when I need to get through here. But and this is hay baling twine. Turns out it's actually quite strong. And so this just keeps the wind from making this thing flutter. It tensions it down, kind of rubber bandish. But yeah, this in the wintertime, this is invaluable. It keeps them out of the mud. Hopefully, you know, my intention is as much as possible for it to keep the goats' hooves dry. I'm hoping this fall to get some heavy chipped bark in here. I actually get wood chips, not bark, but just a real heavy chip, so they've got something to stand on that drains water really well and keeps their hooves out of the water. Cattle, I didn't have any problem with water or mud or any of that. Them suckers are impervious to pretty much everything except flies. So anyways, that's enough about the tarp. So on my left, which is going to be, I think, your guys' right, we were afraid this winter, we were kind of having, well, we had a big gray fox, but I was kind of worried we were having a coyote issue. And so we ended up actually we found some pallets, and these pallets, plus there was one behind me on hinges that actually closed the goats in here at night. None of this was here for the cows. This whole thing behind me was completely open. But right now it's set up for goats, and in the wintertime I also didn't want them getting out in the mud during the winter. I wanted them in here where it was dry. And so you kind of have to ignore the fact that these are here now. We'll go inside and it'll make sense. But like I said, this was here. There was a door behind me with hinges. It hinged all the way open, let them out during the day. But it was there for coyotes. We ended up not actually having any. I don't know. I may keep it for the winter. We'll see. Anyways, we'll look inside here. So the cows would come in here, and we had a large steers. We had a large steer, which was a Angus Seminole or Angus Jersey, and we had a smaller steer that was a Seminole Jersey. And the Angus Jersey liked this side, and the Seminole liked this side. And I measured them when they were smaller, and I divided this up into 3. Now, if you had 2 bigger steers, this would need to be 2 instead of 3 stalls. It need to be 2 stalls. My Angus was big enough that at the end, right before we slaughtered him, I had to put a brace in here because he kept moving this wall around. But these stakes, so I don't know if you guys can see them. For sure you can see this stake here, and there's a stake here, and there's one back there. And then they also, there's a stake right behind the door here that's pounded into the ground. And they didn't do one back here because the animals are not back there. These stakes are pounded into the ground. I think they were, I don't remember if they were 4-footers or 5-footers or what I did. I think I did 4-footers, believe it or not. This ground's pretty hard. I pounded them in and framed this whole area right here, framed to those. They're tied into the ground. There's one here that also serves as the hinge post. And I put these dividers in because originally I had this set up, and the cows would come in here and they would the Angus would intimidate the Seminole, and the Seminole would have to stand back here till the Angus was done, and then he was so timid he wouldn't eat. He'd just go out and try to eat out in the field. So I put these dividers in. I made this one extra long because the Angus would just back around and then screw with the Seminole, and so I made this long enough his whole body was in here at one point. You'll notice I have hot wire running along the top here. I've got one on the face, which didn't work very well because it made the steer hesitant to come in here, and I've got one on top. And so the revision that I would do from my last video to this video, these walls would only be 4 feet high. I was afraid of the cow putting their head over it and into this and tearing it, which they can do very easily. But instead of running one on the face here, and it makes them not want to stand here, I'd run one on top, and then I would put little stickers back here and run one up higher. And they just, once they know there's hot wire on it, they won't mess with it. And so, as an example, what actually ended up working is you can see that I've got the hot wire runs across this low wall here. They won't stick their necks on that because they know that's hot wire. And if I would have taken, there's 2 strands here. If I would have taken one of the strands and put it on a short sticker, there's no way they're going to stick their head anywhere near this. They don't want to get zapped. So what I did over here is I put a gate in, and originally the cows, you know, did their thing in here, and then they figured out one day I came in here, they had got in here in the back, busted the back wall, and then put big holes in the back of the of this Harbor Freight thing, and out they went. They were out the back, and they figured out this has got a magnetic it's tight, it's got a magnetic stop, and somehow I thought that they wouldn't figure out how to get it open. I'm not sure what they did or how they did it, but they, you know, moving their head around and got this thing open and went right in there and ate all the hay. So I ended up making this thing where basically it latches, and they absolutely, none of the animals can get it open. You know, it's there's no way to get it open when it's down. So that's what I did to make it so the gate couldn't be opened. Hinges are right here. They are stainless steel, nice and strong. I think that this wall is somewhere between 36 and 40 inches. I don't remember what my little gate here is. It worked really well. And then I brought the hot wire up and over this opening so that I could walk under it, and it comes along here. And you know, cows, they'll rub on anything, so you've got to have hot wire wherever you don't want cows rubbing against. They'll itch themselves on anything. And they, at one time, that front corner, they broke one of these front corners, and I ended up having to put hot wire. I basically had to box this thing in. And so you can kind of see the type that I used for the corners, and then I used those for guides, and then the hooks, I made the hooks go up. That right there is spaghetti tubing that's slit open for irrigation, or not irrigation, drip line only. It's the really thick stuff. I don't remember what it's not the actual spaghetti tubing, it's the thicker stuff. These bend. You can see that was screwed in at an angle, and it's now bent at a different angle. For the corners like this, somehow the cows, this brand here totally sucks. Don't ever buy that brand. I think that brand is or something, I'm not sure, but they're garbage. On the corners, what I would do now is I would actually use a slit open piece, a 90-degree PVC fitting. The 90-degree PVC, all the PVC fittings are very robust. Even for guides, I would consider getting 1/2-inch PVC because it's super strong. I had the cows break these off every once in a while. They would literally bump up against them and snap them off. And this type here is super brittle. Those things absolutely suck. But I more or less would switch over to PVC. It's just more robust. The cows can rub on it. It's round. It's not going to catch in their skin. It's probably not going to cut them open. Anyways, we'll go through the gate here. So you can see the gate just opens up. And then I use this to put my hay in. I came back here. This fits a bale, the narrow direction. You have to kind of carry it on end. And I would put 1 or 2 bales. Down under here is pallets. And so this is the area where it's the area where I could pet the steer while they were eating. And you know, the more friendly your steer are, the easier they are to manage. In fact, at one time ours were halter. They could be led by a halter, or basically it's a glorified leash, and they would just go with you. And then at the last, they got kind of frisky and they didn't like having a thing put on them, a lead or whatever. So, but yeah, this is where the hay goes. I could get 2 bales in here or 1 bale, and then it also allowed me portion control for the cows, because they'll overeat. They'll eat pretty much whatever you give them. And we'll look at this next. So maybe it would be easier. So I'm not quite sure how wide this is. This looks like 8, 8, and 8. That's 2 feet wide, and it's sloped. Ow. Owie. It's sloped at a pretty steep angle, and the reason it's sloped at a steep angle is it keeps the cows or the goats from sticking their hooves in there. It's way too steep for them to stand on. And I definitely saved on hay. So cows like to pull hay out and drop it on the ground and then walk all over it. And this trough here allowed the cows to eat over it, and a lot of what they would drop would go back in this trough. And what I did too, they love to steal from each other. So one cow from this side over here, would sneak hay underneath. But it basically just allowed me to feed them separately, kept the hay inside, and my little cow would actually loaf clear over on this side, so I fed them 2 stalls apart. So basically I would come in over here, come through here, and go down here, and the cows would be following me in. And then I would come around here and they would be very ready to eat. And so I'd get the hay, I'd get some hay, and I would put the hay, you know, in both sides for each cow. And what I would do is, if I was over it, I'd leave. If I wasn't over it, basically I had little switches back here that I made out of river willow, and I would stand here and just, if the black cow or the big steer came around and tried to bully the little guy, I'd just give him a little switch, and it would make, he already knew, and so the steer would go back over there, and the small steer would eat here. And the small steer was so timid, he's afraid of these too. So, but I keep bale string here in case I have a problem and I need to rope something off. And it's just handy to have them for any tying off anything. They're very strong. So back to what I would do differently. I would absolutely lower these sidewalls down to this height. And this is about belly button height, maybe a touch taller. And I would put hot wire, one course right on top, up near the edge, and then one course up on the back with stickers. And you're gonna, what that would allow you to do on my other video, I don't know how much wood I ended up using, but you're basically gonna get an extra couple boards out of lowering this wall down. You may be able to. So I would cut this down to this height. Like I said, I would put a hot wire on the front edge and a hot wire up on the back. It's going to save you on materials. And it's just, this doesn't need to be this tall for any reason. Back here where you don't, the animals are not supposed to be, I might even make it lower. I might make it a 2 foot tall wall. You just don't need the height. Animals shouldn't be getting back here. The most important part is that you're going to have to decide how big your animals are and if you need just one divider or 2 dividers. If you do 1 divider, you may be able to narrow this up a little bit. I would guess this is 6 feet, something like that. I don't have a tape on me. I'll have to get that in a minute. All right, I ran and got a tape measure. So the opening, the hallway is... rough framing is 25 inside. The door width here just happens to be 24 by 32. This wall is spaced off the ground a little bit. It's framed out at 39, and then to the ground it's more like 42. Let's see here, we'll get you guys back there. Distance between openings, this one siding to siding is 22 inches. This one siding to open, I didn't side that side, is 24. So that's 22. That's part of why it was so narrow for my Angus. This is 24, and this one is 22 and a half. So this is the biggest opening. If I had to do it differently, I would have made this one more narrow where I'm standing now, and I would have made the 2 end ones bigger. If you have horses, you're probably going to need to keep it higher. Right now, the back wall here is spaced off the ground, and it's framed in at, well, the stud length is 48, and then a top and a bottom plate. This wall, this corridor here, from the very front edge, where the hinges are, is 101 and a half, 8 foot 5.5 inches. to the front of the wall, to this inside face here where it's sided with 1/2 inch OSB, is 8 foot 2 1/4 to the front of it. I don't know if any of these numbers will matter to you guys. These stick out. This guy here is 32 inches for my big Angus, this wall here, and 32s to this side is I don't know, 65.5. I pieced a couple walls together. So on that wall there, I've got 2 posts driven into the ground because he kept moving them around. The space back here for hay bales is not quite enough. From the back of the wall to the from this side of the wall to the inside edge is 37 1/4. Hay bales measure something like 48 lengthwise. So somehow, if I could have made this a little shorter, I would have made it 48 back here, front to back. So the bales could have been this way, and I could have got, you know, like 4 back here instead of 1 or 2. Also would have made this a little wider. The bale height or bale width is something like 19, my bale measures, and what did I say inside here was, it's 24, so it fits, but just barely. Height up to off the ground is something like 24. I don't remember what this angle is. Let's see, if I measured from the bottom of the joint down up to the wall, it's 16 inches. And if I measure out to the front edge, it's got 5/8 plywood on it. I would do plywood and not OSB. They'll chip the OSB up, so I used plywood and I rounded the edge over. It's actually 26 inches. That face right here is 26 inches. And it's off the front edge, it's 21 inches out and 16 inches down, if that gives you the angle. I'm trying to think of anything else I would do differently. It matters what animals you're putting in here for your heights. If you're doing sheep, it'll be different. I can't even imagine what it would be for horses. My cows had enough room to lay right in the front edge here. One laid here and one laid kind of over there off camera. The goats, I hate OSB and I'm not super keen on plywood. One of the things I would consider doing is maybe, I don't know, maybe holding this post out to the edge. The goats will eat off this corner. They'll chip it off. If you take this 2x4 and you hold it out past the edge of this ply, they can't get to it with their teeth, and they won't strip it off and eat it. They haven't done it too bad. I'm looking around. They've done the tops a little bit. They get bored. The goats get bored and they'll chew on stuff. So if you're going to build one of these, you need to consider the animal you're going to be putting in here. And that'll kind of help you with construction. If you're not going to have cattle, you don't have to build it near as strong. I still would. 2x4s are so cheap. I'm going to get you guys off here real quick and show you something else. So this is now getting old enough that if you can see, these are all pinholes. Pinhole. It's actually ripped out right here completely. And this is about, you can see a pinhole right here from like fluttering from it going back and forth. I think what I can do to get one more year out of this is probably paint it with some house siding or some what's that crap they float boats, that spray on wonder coating, I don't know, but I think if I use an elastomeric or something I can get one more year out of it. I don't know that that's cheaper. You can supposedly order the entire cover from Harbor Freight for like 70 bucks. So it may be time to do that, to order a new cover. it lasted 3 years. This was an unbelievably good deal. These buildings are. So if you're not running a lot of animals and you are a casual farmer, in our case we had 2. I would have felt comfortable even with 3 in here because we only raised them for 1 year and then slaughtered them. I think you could get 3 in here. For sure you can get 2 in here, but I think you could get 3 in here up until they start to get really big. I think you probably could get 2 horses in here, or maybe only 1. I don't know anything about horses. For sure you can get 3 goats in here, get a bunch of sheep in here. So just depends on what you're doing with this, if you're going to use it as a loafing barn. I'll answer any questions if I can, and I hope you guys have a great day, and as always, I hope this helps somebody. Talk to you later.